bring in our panel now. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani, criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool, and jury consultant Richard Gabriel. Thank you all three for being here. Nima, I know you've been critical of the prosecution in this case, but I thought the closing arguments today were pretty powerful. She painted a devastating and horrific picture of those murders.
I agree, Elizabeth, and maybe the prosecution is watching us on NewsNation every day because they took a different, more nuanced approach today. They didn't argue that Lindsay Clancy was faking it, was exaggerating in terms of how she was treating with her providers and her suicide attempt. They argued that she was mentally ill, but mental illness does not equal legal insanity. I mean, that's really the test here. And you're looking at someone who's paralyzed from the waist down. She's sitting in a wheelchair. I mean, she's clearly somewhat sympathetic, even though she killed, admittedly, her three children. And I think that was the right approach. I think maybe because of the public backlash, or maybe they were just overly zealous. I like the tone of their closing. If they have any chance of getting a conviction, it was because of today's summation. I thought it was fantastic and really the highlight of the prosecution's case, in my opinion. It really was all over the place. And one thing I really liked as well is the emphasis on motive as well. And they now finally explained the explanation, the altruistic suicide. She was depressed. She wanted to take her own life, and she wanted to take her children with her so they don't suffer. I think jurors are going to want to know why someone would do this. And finally, after their experts said so, they really hung their hat on that. And I thought that was a good part of the closing as well.
Brian, as a defense attorney, I mean, Nima points out a very good point. The prosecutors came out of the gate much more hard line against Lindsay Clancy, sort of mocking her claims of mental illness. They are now saying she was severely mentally ill, and she did, in fact. I mean, initially they were saying, well, these were sort of half-hearted suicide attempts. They are no longer saying that. The jury's got to notice that shift.
Yeah, hey, Elizabeth, that's true. I mean, look, in closing argument, both sides are bringing what is the best evidence they've got to sell this jury on. Let's think about it. Each juror, Elizabeth, is kind of like their own CEO of their company, right? They're going to go back there. They're the CEO. They're going to make their own individual decision. I think both sides brought what they had to bring. Prosecutor focused primarily on the kids, right? The children, what they endured, parents on the jury. I'm a parent, you're a parent. How can we let this woman off when she, strangled three kids, and here's the pain they went through? So they did a good job with that. Equally, on the defense side, they attacked the mental health industry. They created this trial within a trial. Reddington, I thought, did a good job again of reminding the jurors of 5 different prescribers, 13 prescriptions, 13 different drugs, 30 prescriptions. He focused a lot on that. But look, at the end of the day, I said this last week, Elizabeth, I really think once you separate the emotion from both closing arguments, what did the experts say? Who had the better experts in this case? That's what I think the case is going to boil down to. And I still think that the defense with Resnick, with having seen, all their experts saw Clancy shortly after this happened.
Right.
And spent time with her. And they said that she had postpartum psychosis.
Yeah.
The prosecution's experts hardly saw her. One was 3 years after.
3 years after, and were very, very, had to admit under oath that they, some of them had extremely little experience dealing with postpartum mental health issues. But Richard, this jury, as Brian noted, was by all accounts riveted and paying close attention. It is made up, the 12 who are deciding Lindsay Clancy's fate, we have got 9 women and 3 men. Female dominated in a case where we've seen in the public debate, which has been fierce and ferocious over this, women have had a very strong reaction to this case and the issue of postpartum mental health.
Well, I think as a general rule, women understand that it is a very real thing, which is why I think some of the early claims by the prosecution that this was all faking might have hit a bad note here. But I think I think so women can also be incredibly harsh on other women in terms of judging them as well. So there is a mixed bag, and it really comes down to what were the individual characteristics of these women in jury selection. That's why I think the prosecution and the defense, probably before closing argument, kind of went over who do I have on this jury? Who am I going to be receptive to it? Closing arguments, for the most part, usually have to hit three different things. One is, how do I arm my advocates with the best arguments? Two, how do I address any vulnerabilities or weaknesses that
Right.
came up in the case? And three, there are some fence sitters, and how do I persuade
How do I
those?
persuade? Well, Richard, that's my next question to you. Have jurors mostly decided, in general, have jurors decided their mind already as closing arguments happen and they start deliberations, or are people still making up their mind?
Most have made up their minds
That's what I
already.
thought.
And hey, they have sort of strong positions. There are some who are generally right in the middle and just can't figure out which way to go. And there's
Okay.
also, in terms of strength, you're really only picking 2 to 3 major opinion leader jurors. So the strong opinion leaders probably have a thing. There's also a vast majority of the jurors who may be persuadable and also can be influenced by some of those stronger personalities on the jury. So the dynamic of personalities also becomes critical. Two types of deliberations typically happen also, which could mean a longer deliberation. One is, we call them evidence-based, which is jurors really want to go over
Okay.
all the evidence that lead up to particular things. And there's also obviously verdict-based things
Okay.
where they just go yes or no on particular questions. Those are quicker deliberations.
Nima, you think that the evidence in this case shows that it really is either first-degree murder that she would be found guilty of, or a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity. Tell me why you don't think second-degree murder or manslaughter add up for at least the evidence and testimony in this case.
I do, Elizabeth. I'll talk about the facts, but that doesn't mean there's not horse trading in that jury deliberation room to get a verdict. Sometimes they just split the baby. It's a terrible pun in this particular case, just to get out of there. But look, first-degree murder in Massachusetts is premeditated, and there's cruelty or atrocity. I think we got both
And
here,
that was the
right?
prosecution's case.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, this was premeditated, and what is more cruel than strangling your three
Nothing.
children with an exercise band? It's horrific, right? And obviously, we've talked about insanity and criminal responsibility at length. Second-degree murder, you don't have the premeditation, you don't necessarily have the cruelty, atrocity. Maybe it gives Lindsay Clancy the possibility of parole. For me, manslaughter, we've talked about it. Recklessness doesn't make sense. Now, I understand why the judge gave the instruction. The defense asked for it, and Brian will tell you the last thing you want is an issue on appeal. So that's sort of a throw-in for the judge to prevent the inevitable appellate issue by not giving that lesser included.
Manslaughter.
But Elizabeth,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, if we end up with manslaughter and a 20-year sentence, that's a compromise split verdict. There's no real legal basis for it, in my opinion.
Brian, the judge also in his instructions told the jury that they should not allow themselves to be influenced by the autopsy photos of the 3 children. I was very struck by that because it feels like that's telling someone to unring a bell. Can you really unsee something as horrible as that? I don't think those jurors will ever forget seeing those photos.
Yeah, Elizabeth, great point. Before I answer that, look, I don't think you're going to get a conviction on first-degree murder. I think it's going to be hung on first-degree murder, and I think you might get a guilty verdict, believe it or not, on manslaughter. That would be a compromise. That's my prediction.
Okay.
But getting back to your point, you and I talked about this before. I still think there is potential reversible error here. The issue of how these children died is highly emotional. It's highly prejudicial.
Right, and the defense, just so our audience remembers, wanted to stipulate. She admits killing her children. We don't need to talk anymore about how they died. The prosecution refused to allow the defense to stipulate to that, so that the prosecution could show the autopsy photos, could get the medical examiner up on the stand and give that brutal, awful testimony about how the children died and what their injuries were and how long it took. It was awful. But that's the point that you're talking about. The defense wanted to stipulate, we admit she killed them, and the prosecution refused to take the stipulation.
Yeah, but under Rule 403, it's up to the judge. Even if the prosecutor says, I'm not going to agree to that, they didn't agree because they wanted the jury to hear about it and close the argument. So the judge should have said, I've been in cases like this where I could, Elizabeth, I could barely get in one photograph of a dead child. I handle these cases. It's impossible to get it in. In this case, you have a prosecutor telling the juror what these kids endured when they were dying. And I really do believe this, that if there's a conviction here on first-degree murder, this could be potential grounds for a reversal on appeal.
All right, Nima Rahmani, Brian Claypool, Richard Gabriel, thank you all for your expertise as we await to see this jury. The judge even said to them, I do not envy the job you have in front of you. They have so much to go through. It is such an excruciating, horrific case. We shall see. We are now on jury watch. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.